Welcome to the Culture Compute Podcast, a special episode exploring the very best of culture, learning, and technology in the AI era. I am your host, Sai Gattupalli, and today we are embarking on an unforgettable journey to uncover the roots of culture and its profound impact on learning and technology. So get ready to dive deep into the foundations that shape our world in this special edition of the Culture Compute Podcast. In our rapidly evolving digital landscape, understanding culture has never been more critical. As we navigate the complexities of AI, machine learning, and global connectivity, it is crucial to revisit and re examine the fundamental concept that underlies all human interaction and innovation: culture. Today, we are taking a step back from our usual exploration of cutting edge research to focus on the bedrock of our podcast: culture itself. We will be unraveling the multifaceted definitions of culture, exploring its key components, and examining how it shapes our identities, societies, and technologies. Whether you are an educator looking to create more inclusive learning environments, a technologist seeking to design culturally responsive education tools, or simply someone fascinated by the intricate tapestry of human existence, this episode promises to offer valuable insights that will enhance your understanding of the world around us. So let's begin our exploration by asking the fundamental question: what exactly is culture? Culture, at its core, is a complex and dynamic concept that has been studied across various academic disciplines. It's far more than just the visible elements like dress, cuisine, or architecture that we often associate with different societies. Let's explore how different fields of sciences define and understand culture. Starting with the anthropological perspective. Anthropologists typically define culture as a complex system of learned behaviors, beliefs, and practices that categorize a particular group of people. Edward Tylor, often regarded as the father of the cultural anthropology, provided one of the earliest comprehensive definitions of culture in 1871. Tylor described culture as that complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, art, law, morals, customs, and other capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. To put this into context, think about how you learned to celebrate holidays, the foods you consider comforting, or the way you greet your friends. These are all learned behaviors that make up part of your cultural identity. Franz Boas, who is another influential anthropologist, emphasized the importance of cultural relativism, which is the idea that we should understand and evaluate a culture on its own terms rather than judging by the standards of another culture. For instance, in some cultures, it is considered polite to burp after a meal to show appreciation, while in other cultures, it would be seen as rude. Cultural relativism encourages us to understand these differences without any judgment or biases. Second is the perspective of sociologists. Sociologists view culture as the way of life of a particular group of people, including their values, beliefs, norms, and practices. They often distinguish between material culture, which is tangible objects, and non material culture, which are intangible aspects such as values and beliefs. One sociologist, Emily Durkheim, a founding figure in sociology, introduced the concept of collective consciousness, which is the shared beliefs, attitudes, and moral values that hold a society together. Think about how national anthems or flags can evoke strong emotions and a sense of unity among people of the same country. This is an example of collective consciousness in action. A French sociologist, Pierre Bourdieu, introduced the concept of cultural capital, which is the social assets of a person, could be educational, intellectual, or the style of their speech and dress, etc. Cultural capital promotes social mobility beyond economic means. One example is that knowing how to behave at a fine dining restaurant or being able to discuss classical music might be forms of cultural capital in certain social circles. Next, we look at the psychological perspective. Psychologists define culture as a complex phenomenon that encompasses the attitudes, beliefs, customs, and behaviors shared among members of a particular group. They focus on how culture shapes individual and collective psychological processes. Lev Vygotsky, a pioneering psychologist from the Soviet era, emphasized the role of culture in cognitive development. He argued that higher mental functions are socially and culturally determined. One example is to consider how the language we speak influences our thought processes. For example, some languages have many words for different types of snow, which might affect how speakers of those language perceive and categorize their environment. Geert Hofstede developed the cultural dimensions theory, which describes national cultures along six dimensions, such as power distance, individualism, masculinity, uncertainty avoidance, long term orientation, and indulgence. These dimensions can help explain cultural differences in work environments. For example, in cultures with high power distance, employees might be less likely to question their superiors, while in low power distance cultures, a more egalitarian approach might be common. As we can see, culture is a multifaceted concept that influences every aspect of our lives, from our individual thought processes to our societal structures. Understanding these different perspectives on culture can help us navigate our increasingly interconnected world more effectively. Now, you might be wondering, why is understanding culture so important in our digital age? Well, let me share with you a touching story that captures the power of culture in today's world. In the bustling city of Tokyo in Japan, an elderly man named Hiroshi felt increasingly isolated in a rapidly digitalizing society. His grandchildren rarely visited him, always busy with their smartphones and social media, of course. Hiroshi, who valued face to face interactions and traditional Japanese customs, felt left behind and disconnected from his family. One day, his granddaughter Yuki noticed Hiroshi's sadness. Realizing the cultural gap that had formed, she decided to bridge it. She introduced Hiroshi to a specially designed tablet with an interface that incorporated elements of traditional Japanese culture, such as calligraphy style fonts, nature inspired themes, and even a virtual tea ceremony app. At first, Hiroshi was hesitant, but as Yuki patiently showed him how to use the device, explaining how it could connect him with his family and community, Hiroshi began to see technology in a new light. The tablet became a window to a world he thought he had lost touch with. Soon, Hiroshi was using video calls to participate in virtual tea ceremonies with old friends, sharing digital haikus with a poetry group, and even learning to tend a virtual Zen garden. Most importantly, he was able to stay connected with his family, sharing in their daily lives despite the physical distance. This experience not only brought Hiroshi closer to his loved ones, but also inspired Yuki to start a program teaching other elderly Japanese how to use technology in culturally meaningful ways. Their story spread, encouraging tech companies to consider cultural sensitivity in their designs for older users. This story illustrates how culture is not just about preserving traditions, it's a dynamic force that can bridge generational gaps and reshape our relationship with technology. By understanding and respecting cultural values, we can create technologies that don't just change our lives, but enrich them in ways that are meaningful across generations. As we delve deeper into the concept of culture, it is important to note that culture is not monolithic. Anthropologists, sociologists, and psychologists have identified several key components that make up what we call culture. Number one, values and beliefs. Values and beliefs are the core principles that guide behavior within a society. For example, the value placed on individual achievement in many Western cultures versus the emphasis on a collectivistic or a collective harmony in many Eastern cultures. Number two is norms and rules, which is the expected behaviors and customs that regulate social interactions. This could range from table manners to business etiquette and how you dress. Number three are symbols. Symbols can be objects, gestures, or even written or even spoken words that carry a particular meaning within a culture. The peace sign, for instance, is globally recognized but can have different connotations in different cultures. Number four is linguistic expressions. The primary means of communication and a crucial carrier of cultural ideas is the linguistic expressions vehicle. The Sapir-Whorf hypothesis suggests that the structure of a language influences its speakers' worldviews. Next is technology. The tools and techniques a society uses to solve problems and adapt to its environment, including everything from ancient farming techniques to modern smartphones. Let's consider how these components play out in our digital age. For example, let's take social media platforms such as Twitter or TikTok. They have their own set of values, like the importance of brevity or visual storytelling, and norms such as the use of hashtags or challenges. And then there are symbols such as the like button or the retweet button or emojis, and even specific language or slang. They have also given rise to new technologies and ways of interacting that are now shaping our broader culture. Understanding culture as this complex, dynamic system helps us appreciate why it is so crucial in fields like education and technology. In education, recognizing and respecting cultural differences can lead to more inclusive and effective learning environments. In technology, understanding cultural nuances can help in designing more user friendly and globally accessible products. But culture is not just about differences, it's also about what unites us as humans. Anthropologist Donald Brown identified numerous cultural universals, which are elements that exist in all known human societies, and hence the name cultural universals. These include things such as family structures, methods of solving disputes, religious beliefs, and the use of tools. Even as we celebrate cultural diversity, recognizing these universals can help us build bridges across different cultures. As we wrap up our exploration of culture, it is clear that in our increasingly interconnected and AI driven world, cultural intelligence is becoming as crucial as technological know hows. By understanding the fundamental aspects of culture, we can better navigate the complex intersections of culture, learning, and technology that we explore in each episode of the Culture Compute podcast. So, as you go about your day, I encourage you to take a moment to reflect on the cultural forces that are shaping your experiences. How does your cultural background influence your approach to learning or your interaction with technology? How might understanding other cultures enhance your ability to innovate and communicate in a global society? Something to think about. The Culture Compute podcast, Learning in the Digital Age, is produced from my home in Amherst, Massachusetts, in the United States. I am Sai Gattupalli, your host and the producer of this podcast. Our theme music was composed by Liborio Conti. This project is a personal endeavor managed and produced entirely by myself, drawing upon my extensive experience with education technology and digital media skills. You can find this and future episodes by subscribing to the Culture Compute podcast wherever you get your podcasts. If you have a question and would like to suggest a topic or just want to reach out, you can email me at sgarupali@umass.edu, which is also in the show notes. You can also email me a voice memo of you asking your question, and you might get your voice heard on air. This podcast reviews only open access articles in an attempt to promote open science. Thanks for joining me on this special exploration of culture, and I'll be back next week diving into more intersections of culture, technology, and learning in our digital age.